Good morning, everybody. I am Dr. Robin Kearney Frazier. I am the president of Guilds of Requiem, and I am going to be discussing about pretty much everything about Guilds of Requiem. And it's been a process. Had to do a couple of retakes, but that's fine. We will get through this today. So this is a first of our onboarding webinars. It gives a general overview of the Guilds of Requiem. We are incorporated as a nonprofit, and we are a recognized 501c private foundation. So what that basically means is that we make money or we get grants to donate to other people and have a philosophy of community service. So what is our agenda? I'm going to do a quick introduction of our current board members, explain the organization philosophy behind our board members and executive board members and vice presidents and everything. I'm going to give a history of the Guilds of Requiem, and it's a lot longer than the people think. I'm going to talk about the difference between a guild, a gilded project, and a sub-guild. We're going to give an overview of what to expect in the rest of our webinars, and then, of course, how to join Guilds of Requiem. Here are our board members and our hierarchical structure. We do have 3 people that are reported as board members to state of Texas and the IRS. Of course, one is myself as the president. The other one is our secretary, Mikey Lee Gravely, and our treasurer, Matthew Frazier. Underneath me, we also have vice presidents. What these are is they're appointed by their guilds to ensure that there's representation of the members' interests by giving them a voice on our board of directors. These are not reported to the IRS. These are volunteer positions, and we love working with, as you can see, we've got a lot of vacancies, and we would like to change that. And here's our executive board directors. One of the things that we tell people to differentiate between the board members and the executive board members is our board members, well, we're bored. We really only have to function twice a year, an additional meeting per, monthly meeting per year, kind of bring together all the reports and look and see what's going on and what needs to be presented each month. So that's a good way to remember is that we're bored, and the executive board of directors, they execute the day-to-day portions of Guilds of Requiem. We have 8 guilds. We have the Agrarian Guild, which is pretty much anything that grows. Actually, you know what? Instead of doing these now, I know that I have them further in the webinar, but this just tells you which vice president reports to which guild and which guild we are getting representation from on our board of directors. You can see that there's 3 of them that actually have 2 people, but a lot of them are vacant right now. We do have a vice president of Guild of Projects, which is Mikey, and vice president of the International Projects and Chapters. This does not represent a conflict of interest. They are not reporting directly to themselves. As you can see, they report to the guilds that they are part of. Those guild masters then report to myself. So why are we doing this? Our primary goal is to create a system of checks and balances. So theoretically, no one should be reporting directly to themselves. I guess one of a example would be Mikey. She is our secretary. She is also our resources guild master, and she does the vice president of Gilded Projects. And so if we look back here, we can see that as secretary, she reports to me, not a conflict of interest. Vice president of Guild of Projects, she reports to her guild, which is the Merchants Guild, run by Christopher Van Cleve at this point in time. And then he in turn reports to me. So that's how we have the nice structure going, so that we know who's who and who's responsible for what. So what this does is also helps us create a distinction between purely volunteer work from the positions that we have to the ones who can have potential income. So that is very important because we recognize that all of our volunteers do have full lives outside of the Guilds of Requiem, and we want them to make sure that they can have a balance between work and family and volunteer works and everything else. So all of our board directors, which includes the vice presidents, we are purely volunteer. This means we cannot get paid for the work that we do in that position. We can hold other positions in the guild that do have the potential for income. So we didn't want to take that away from people and needed to do a workaround. So like I said, this allows board members to hold monetized positions within the Guilds of Requiem structure. This does not include any freelance work that somebody does off of our website or themselves that we're promoting. That's when they're doing freelance work, they're doing work for other people, not for us. So they definitely have the right to do that. So what are some of our people? Well, first we have our guilds masters. That is me. I am the president and our founder of Guilds of Requiem Incorporated. This is strictly a non-paid position that changes in one of 2 or 3 ways, and actually probably 4. I kind of missed one. And that's when I retire and I name a successor. As time goes on and we get bigger, I'll have an opportunity to see who really understands the philosophies behind Guilds of Requiem and what we're trying to do with it. And at that point, I'll create a little document that says upon my retirement or death, that this person's going to take over Guilds of Requiem. I can be declared mentally incompetent. So then the new president would have to be elected by the board members. So that is a very real possibility. One of the reasons I started Guilds of Requiem is I was in an auto accident and I do have a traumatic brain injury, which makes it difficult for me to work more than a few hours a day, maybe a couple, and then I'm usually down for 2 or 3. So this really is not a job for me because I'm not making any money from it, even from anything else. And I'm not really, who else is going to let me work at 2 a.m. to record a video that's an hour long? Don't know a whole lot of people. So the final way that I could lose my position is that I commit a crime that goes against the very nature of our nonprofit organization. I can tell you right now, after 20 years in law enforcement, I am not going to knowingly commit a crime. It's definitely not fraud, embezzlement, crimes against a person, certainly not going to sexually assault somebody. I'm definitely not going to rob anybody. So that one is, kind of there for the next generation to comprehend. And once again, the new president would be elected by the board members. That includes the secretary, the treasurer, and all the vice presidents. So once again, who are our board members? Technically, it's myself, the secretary and treasurer. We have unpaid positions per the IRS 501c guidelines, along with our vice presidents. They are voluntary and exempt from earning money in the discharge of their duties. Vice presidents are appointed by the members of the guild they represent after an election. We're going to be working on that. We still have things in progress, mostly because we don't have people filling the positions. So they are considered board members and technically only function a few times a year, no more than the hours. So who is a guild master? This is the person that's in charge of the day-to-day operations of their guild. So they're the ones that make sure their project leaders are doing what they need to do, checking up on the sub guilds. Do they need to work with Merchants Guild for marketing? Do they need some resources, some HR issues maybe? Then that comes in with the Resources Guild. So these people are determined in one of 2 ways. Either someone volunteers for this position or they answer an employment ad. And we make sure that we're stressing that everybody is volunteers right now. We do have the goal of being self-sufficient, first of all, but the option to get donations, grants that cover operational expenses. And we have a list in which the first people that are going to become our first paid employees, and there'll be a whole new realm for us. So right now, it's typically an unpaid position, volunteer, but you have the opportunity for financial gains. So Christopher, as the interim Merchants Guild master, if he decides that, hey, I'm going to do some freelance work for graphic design, he can do so. But whenever he's doing his reports, right now it's volunteer, potential being paid. Ideally, this person is a member of Guilds of Requiem for at least 1 year, or they are coming to us with nonprofit experience and the experience in the guild they're applying for. So if somebody comes to us and says, I would really like to be the guild master of the Agrarian Guild. Okay, you're with us for 12 months. That's our first criteria. Do they have nonprofit experience? Well, they're with us 12 months. We're a nonprofit. Of course, they have nonprofit experience. But the final thing we're going to make sure is that they have experience in the Agrarian Guild. They need to either know how to do homesteading, herbology, plant identification, aquaponics. There's a whole range that's in the Agrarian Guild that they could have experience in that makes them a candidate for the Agrarian Guild Master. Assistant Guild Master are in charge of day-to-day operations of our sub-guilds. A sub-guild is a project that can stand on its own. It can be self-sufficient. It may touch more than one guild in what they do, or maybe it touches none and we had to make an executive decision of, okay, who are we going to place these with? Who are they going to report to? The assistant guild members are members of the Guilds of Requiem for at least 1 year. And the reason we want this is we want them to understand how our structure works, what the expectations are before they say, okay, yeah, I'll run this project. And then they realize it's more than a few hours a week that they're needing to put in to make sure this guild is happening. So typically it is an unpaid position, volunteer. We always give them the opportunity for financial gains, either through booking contracted work, what some of the other, they could be selling their products off of our website, or we have a link to their website. They're a part of our vendors guild, and so they vend on at our events. So there's a whole bunch of different ways in which somebody can make money with our nonprofit. We do have our final one, that's our project leaders. They are in charge of the day-to-day operations of the project. So one of those would be coming up soon is the Homesteaders and Preppers Guild. We have 2 bazaars every year. We have one in the spring, which is March. It's going to be just a couple of days before the spring actually happens. And then we have our fall bazaar, which happens the 3rd week in September. We did opt to have all of our events, except for Ren Fair, on the 3rd Saturday of every year. September through May. So they are in charge, they're members of the Guilds of Requiem for at least 6 months. That's because we want to make sure they understand how do we operate, what's the expectation of project leaders. And again, it's an unpaid position, volunteer with the opportunity for financial gains. I'm not going to read all of these. Our PowerPoints will be available on our website where you can come back and you can review it. And this point is very important, especially if you decide to go on with more of our onboarding videos. We want to know that you're doing this, and we do have what's called a completion quiz that basically tells us who you are, how to get a hold of you, where do you live, what areas interest you. We'll ask you to rank them, and to expect that you're going to be doing more. You know, one of us will reach out to you and say, hey, we saw that you did our overview onboarding video. Let's start a conversation. Here's some more abbreviations. The one that everybody loves that we created is SPAM. That is short for shameless promoting, advertising, and marketing. The other ones that are in the spotlight all the time is Space Station Requiem, along with our steampunk unit. We have R3H, because it's a lot to say. Requiem's home, hearth, and heart. CS is customer service. HOTD is Haven of the Dragon. That has been around since 1995. Anyone who is a guardian means that they belong to our Guardians Guild, and specifically they belong to Haven of Requiem Guardians. The healers and warriors are also considered guardians. The healers are, of course, those who heal people, heal animals. There are medics, there are paramedics, there are field medics. And yes, they can belong to more than one Haven of Requiem. Our final one is the warriors, and this is anyone who has military experience, either they're active, reservist, or had a discharge under anything except for, oh, what's the word? It just went through my head. Non-something, but that means they left the military in good graces. So here's a history. I'm going to try to go through it pretty quick. I'm pretty passionate about this. And as you see, I've been doing this for a while and thinking about it for an even longer time. So this is actually a promise that is 30 years in the making. And why is that? It began as a concept in the late 1980s as a part of a school project to create the perfect nonprofit corporation. My project focused on how to keep old world training values in the modern world. And that's the apprentice, journeyman, master way of working with people and teaching. How can our organization stand apart and above all other organizations? There are a lot of nonprofits out there. If you go to the IRS website and you search for nonprofits, It's massive. You've got to know the name of the company that you're researching, or possibly their EIN, so that you can find them and verify that, yes, they are a nonprofit with the IRS. So how do we stand out against all those other peoples? And it amounts to a promise that I made my teacher that I was going to create something worthwhile. So where did that bring us? The first thing that was created was 6 Cents Apothecary, and that came about October 31st of 1992. If you've seen some of my videos and some of our monthly meetings, you'll know that I'm very passionate about products, personal care products, home care products, homeopathic remedies. And then we also did, people would co-op on buying bulk herbs and spices, and we would then distribute them among the community that we were part of. And then along came Haven of the Dragon, a World Religions Education organization. It was the second one to form in 1995. And this saw the first glimmers of what they called the inner and outer courts of leadership. What Guilds of Requiem calls them, our executive board members and our board members. So the outer court positions were kind of like a proving ground for those that got invited to the inner court. That means it's somebody who's shown that they're trustworthy, that they're passionate, and that they really understand what's going on with Guilds of Requiem, and they get the concept. So then I had to take a little bit of a break because life, I became a mom. 1996 saw me be a mom. And I was a single mom until he was almost 7. So I had to take a pretty much break on working specifically on the Guilds of Requiem dream. I did have the Haven of the Dragon. I had Terra Haven Mall. I was still creating products. I was creating candles. I was creating jewelry, creating soaps and everything else. So even though it was a break from the Guilds of Requiem dream, I was still pretty busy. And so if most people know and have watched some of our meetings, I was in an auto accident in 2016. First you see it, then you do it. And that involved a late night drive from San Antonio to Corpus Christi, and I was on the highway. There was no reason for me to expect that there would be a 2,000-pound cow laying on the road. Yeah, I told about my SUV, I was airlifted, and life changed. Up until that point, I was just dealing with a minor disability, and most companies could accommodate that, either by allowing me to bring my service dog or keeping me in a centralized location, not walking a whole lot, kind of not give me any extra stress that I didn't need or already put upon myself. And so after the auto accident, I found it very challenging to be at work every day, to be present at work every day, because there were times when my pain levels were just so bad. I sat at my desk and bawled and bawled and bawled. And at that point, my supervisor or director said, why don't you go on home? Because you're obviously not having a very good day. And what happened? Going home so many times, I ran out of sick time and everything else, and they finally had to say, we're sorry, we can't accommodate you any further than what we already have. We need to reduce your hours. And I was kind of okay with that because I had applied for a teaching position and got it. So that teaching position was only going to be 6 hours a week. I can handle that. So yeah, that's where I discovered disability friendly employment was anything but friendly people. So 2018, I decided to take 6 Cents Apothecary from being a side hustle to a major moneymaker. 2018, 2019, we saw the highest sales of 6 Cents Apothecary products. In October of 2019, I kind of got hospitalized with this mystery upper respiratory infection. And the doctors come back to me and they said, you're 100% disabled. There's no chance of recovery. And I said, you know what? You had COVID. We didn't have the test back then, but you've got COVID. Right. Great. Sure. Life turned to hell in a handbasket, and I'll gladly say that. And I apologize to anyone that may offend, but my life radically changed. So what did that mean for everything else? In 2020, Guilds of Requiem purchased Guilds of Requiem Incorporated, basically purchased everything from me as a nonprofit corporation with Texas, so that we could preserve the structure that was already showing up that you saw in our hierarchical previous slides. 2022, on a bet and a chance and a dare and a small prayer, we submitted to be a nonprofit with the IRS, and we were pleasantly surprised when they came back after our first submission, no issues, no errors with our paperwork, and said, we're going to label you a nonprofit private foundation. As I mentioned earlier, this means that we seek out grants, donations, or anything else that we invest into our own organization and all of our projects. A lot of them are community service related or educational, and we assist other nonprofits in our community, and that's very important. At least to me it is. I think it is to everybody else. What got us? We know the mission is that we're creating intentional communities. We know that we are seeking educational opportunities or providing educational opportunities. And we also have service to our community, and that begins with steward leadership. But where did they all come from? We just didn't one day randomly say, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to believe. We had to justify those models with our philosophies. So our first one, and I'm going to just briefly go over these because we do have videos coming up that we're going to be recording and getting up on our YouTube channel, get them up on our website and everything else that discusses these a little bit more in detail. So the first one, and yes, I'm aware there's a spelling error on here. I didn't create the slide, but I am using it, is we had an adaptable guild system. That means we were organic and could change with the times, change with the needs, change with the flow of everything. We also are a diverse guild system. This means that with the 8 guilds that we have a wide variety of people who have interests, they have cultural backgrounds, pretty much guarantees that we're not discriminating against anybody because we do welcome all into the Guilds of Requiem. We're also an educational. You're going to see a little bit later on that we got one that's slightly different. We're an educational guilds. That means we want to offer opportunities to our members to better themselves, learn a new skill, learn a new trade, up their level of the skills they currently have. So that is why we are an educational guild system. We're a historical guild system, just based on our structure that we have apprentices, journeymen, guild masters, assistant guild masters, and a guilds master. So that right there is a historical system in how we are structured. But it also means that we're trying to preserve the crafts, skills, and knowledge of all the generations that came before us. That when we started this, that was a real danger. We had a group that was in Ireland, and we watched them as they aged, and some moved away. And when they moved away, they took all that knowledge with them. So our goal is if somebody comes to us and says, hey, I have all this knowledge, we're going to have at least 2 or 3 people say, hey, can you share it with us? Because we want to know it too. We don't want the skill to be lost. We're also a respectful guild system. What that means is that we treat everyone equally. It doesn't matter what their position is in the guilds. A lot of times that position just means that they have more experience, or that they are the ones who stepped up to fill a need. It's not that they're better than anybody else. I was raised on the philosophy that you treat a janitor with the same amount of respect as you do a CEO or the President of the United States. Everyone deserves respect. That's all it's to it. Even if they're being disrespectful to you, you need to respect that they have a different perspective. And that's what we will go into more detail on that later. We're a specialized guild system. As you saw, we have 8 different guilds. And that means that when somebody comes to us and says, hey, I know how to crochet, I know how to knit, hey, I know weaving, we're going to say, awesome. So you're a crafter. We're going to put you in the Crafters Guild. And they're like, oh, hey, wait a second. By the way, I also am an entertainer. Fantastic. We have a Bard's Guild for that. And you'll learn more about those later on. But that just means that when somebody comes to us, we're able to quantify what the main primary skill that they're coming to us with, along with other skills they may have. Finally, we're a teaching guild. Actually, I think there's one more. We're a teaching guild system. This means that we teach others outside of Guilds of Requiem. We teach high school equivalency. We teach English as a second language. We teach kids that are in homeschool. When we have our BantuckyCon, we're teaching about science, technology, engineering, arts, and math in a fun, interactive way where they're going to sit there and go, wow, I learned something today while I had fun. That's why we are a teaching guild system. So you heard me talk about guilds, subguilds, and gilded projects. It is more than just semantics, trust me. We have a reason for this organization. So a guild, what is a guild? A guild is our designation for one of our 8 departments. We wanted to keep the old world system, and so we came up with, we researched historically what was the organizational process. So we decided, okay, these are the 8 fields, actually 7, because one is for chapters that people who want to mimic or follow what we're doing and create their own guilds of Requiem. So a guild has what we call a guild master. Everybody else would call them a department head. All of them have an apprenticeship program and gilded projects based on the needs of their members and our communities. We hope to be able to offer externships to students that are in that field of study, and it also gives them nonprofit operational experience. So a member is generally placed into a primary guild. It would typically be the reason that they joined. They work in construction. So they're like, okay, where am I going to be at? Well, construction is in our technicians guild because they're building something. All right, oh, cool. Hey, by the way, I've got experience running nonprofits. Yes, you're my new best friend in the resources department. We love it. So that's basically what that means, is the primary reason they joined in an area of passion, or they possess more than basic knowledge in that area. And then we make everybody apprentice in all the other guilds. We firmly believe in cross-training because we do not want to lose the knowledge that those before us have. Meet the guilds and an overview of what they do. Give me just a second here. I'm caffeinating. So I started to touch in on a lot of this earlier. Our agrarian guild is anything that grows, is raised, or otherwise found on a homestead or in the prepper's possession. So that's going to be gardening. It's going to be gardening. That's going to be your hydroponics. That's going to be your aquaponics. That's going to be animal husbandry. Raising chickens, getting eggs, whatever. And yes, we do have some people who are on a ranch and they have a lot of cattle that they raise. They're in the agrarian guild. We have our crafters and artist skill. That was a new thing that we added that we're not quite sure we're going to update the logo about it, but we're certainly going to include artists. And ironically, it's the largest guild with minimal hands-on work by the staff members. We're hoping in the future that's going to change, but for right now, they're not very busy. Our Guardians Guild is responsible for the health, safety, welfare, and the protection of the guilds as a whole. We already touched on the Haven of Requiems. Also included in there is your private sector security, your risk management specialist, anything that has to do with protection or healing. We have our new kid on the block is the International Guilds of Requiem. They're not a set skill set, but they help people in different locations to start their own chapter of community resources. Later on, you'll be introduced to Requiem Kenya. They have been with us the longest. We have Haven of Hope in Iceland, and we do have a couple of Haven of Requiems in Ireland and India. That we have some people in India that are interested in joining, people in China that are interested in joining. What was the other one that just Guadalajara, Mexico. So yeah, I'm having to work on my Spanish and use Google Translate a lot. We have our Merchants Guild, and they're the ones that do the spamming. They do our marketing, advertising, merchandising, and they helped establish the brands for Guilds of Requiem. Our Resources Guild of Requiem is our business administration office. There are human resources and our humane resources. That means they do community outreach. We have our Scholars Guild of Requiem. They're our educational department that approves all correct curriculums of any project or program that aims to teach. This is my baby. I have my doctorate degree in adult education and curriculum theory and design with a specialty in distance learning. I teach in person, but I can also teach virtually. This is my baby that I hope someday to retire and just do the Scholars Guild and write. Our last but not least is our Technicians Guild of Requiem. And we have a lot of people, what do they do? Well, they have a motto. We have construction workers and we have a few IT people. They're all technicians. So their motto is, you dream it, we build it, you break it, we fix it. That's the best way to remember our Technicians Guild. So sub-guilds and gilded project. This one is kind of long, and yes, I know we're taking a lot of time. I hope to be done in less than an hour, but there's a lot of information to give over about our program and our organization. So sub-guilds, they blur the lines of which guild does it really belong to. Let's see here. I think our first one that we kind of moved around a little bit was our Homesteaders and Preppers Guild. When we first formed it, we saw it as a resource, that these are resources that people need. And as it began to develop more, we realized that, wow, it has a lot to do with the Agrarian Guild. So we moved it over there, but it's still involved with resources. Frequently, a guild placement is a judgment call by the board of directors because they truly belong to more than one guild, or they don't belong to any of the guilds. So they can stand alone in what they do. That means they have their own chapter charter of how they operate. They have a membership application where they limit who can actually join, based on the person's experience. They have the potential for an annual or one-time membership fee to help support their project. They have the ability to be income producing, making them self-sufficient, and they are the most visible projects in the public eye. Frequently, it has Guilds or Requiem in their title, sometimes both. A Guilded project is any undertaking that is open to the public to join. There is no membership application, and we have an exception down at the bottom, has no membership fees. Typically, they are a virtual project that anyone can join in and participate. That would be like our Master Procrastinators Facebook group. We don't have a membership application for that. We have the World's Super Group, World's People Super Group on Facebook that we just have fun. We have funnies in there. We have really bad dad jokes. We have videos in there, memes in there. And we try to make lift each other up and if we make you smile or chuckle a little bit, then, it's a world super group of amazing people. That's what you are. You're amazing. And we want to be a part of your day that makes it a little bit brighter and easier to go on. So a brief introduction to what guilds are. Each of the gilded projects does touch on how we operate and what makes us special. And again, frequently they have guild or requiem in their name. And when the project involves minors or other protected category participants, that would be our elderly, our disabled, they can require a background check of new participants. We want to make sure, especially with our youth organization, that we're not knowingly allowing a registered sex offender to join. We're here, our Guardians Guild is here to protect, and they're the ones that do all of our background checks when and where needed. We're very, with 20 years of law enforcement experience, you're going to find that's my secondary passion is the Guardians Guild. What to expect on our onboarding sessions? Well, as you can see, I love running my mouth, but each future webinar will cover our philosophies explained with discussion opportunities. And we have a forum on our resources guild page that we can go in there and discuss philosophies. We're going to cover each of the guilds individually, go more in depth on what they do. We're going to include how gilded projects operate. We're going to answer the question, at what point does a project become a sub-guild? We're going to include information about the qualities we're looking for in a guild master for that specific to that guild. And finally, each of them will include the opportunity of how can you become involved and what to expect in our 6-month probationary period. Texas is a right to work state. that means that you have the right to come work with us, and we have the right to say no. We do allow a 6 months probationary period before we ask for any specific commitment. Just because you don't want to commit to something doesn't mean you can't be a part of us, but it gives you the opportunity, and I'm talking with my hands and everyone, kind of getting some giggles behind me. Everyone starts with a 6 months probationary period because we want to make sure that we are a good fit for you and that you are a good fit for us, and that we're all on the same page of what Guilds of Requiem is about. I promise that if you comment or question with this guild, we will get back to you and we will answer all of them. There's going to be a members only forum on the Resources Guild webpage where we're going to have continuations of discussions. I will have that link down in the information section. Remember, no question is a dumb question, as there's a chance somebody else was wondering the same thing. We might refer you to an upcoming webinar that already answers that question for you. All onboarding videos will have a completion quiz that is a part of the onboarding process and is required to have completed before access will be granted to the next webinar and the next webinar and the next webinar. They'll all be available on YouTube, but if you want to get credit for them, you have to do the completion. That, I believe, is everything that we have. I would thank you for your time, and we hope to see you. Stop share. We hope to see you later on in the Guilds of Requiem, and we hope you have a fantastic day.